Hi, Dr. Sasse here from Sasse Surgical. I wanted to address the topic of a failed gastric bypass surgery. This is something that comes up quite a bit, and we sometimes get some emails and questions about it. If you hang in there till the end of this video, I'm going to tell you the 3 most important things that you should do if you are experiencing a failed gastric bypass surgery to try to get healthier and live the longest, healthiest, best life you can live. So hang in there with me. First of all, let me just say that failed gastric bypass surgery does happen. None of these operations are perfect. At least 10%, and probably in some studies closer to 20% of people will experience failure of the surgery. I think the most important thing is to know that this is not a failure of you, this is a failure of us meaning the scientists working on this, of the surgeons who are trying to create the best plans, and just the fact that we just don't have all the answers yet. Obesity is a really complex problem, and so is type 2 diabetes. And this is mostly the result of an intersection between Mother Nature and then the ways in which we as a society have altered the food supply and the genetics of our food staples, as well as many other environmental factors, chemicals, etc., that influence our genetic makeup and make us gain weight and develop diabetes. It's happening around the world to almost everybody. So just let yourself off the hook. This is not your fault. This is a big problem, and it's because we don't have all the answers. It's an imperfect tool, and it works in a high percentage of cases, but not all cases. Yes, I want you to also commit to redoubling your efforts to a 7-day-a-week daily exercise program where you do some moderate, gentle, so-called zone 2 exercise, which we've talked about in other videos and other places, but moderate exercise where you can keep a conversation going. This builds your mitochondria. This allows for better metabolism and lowered blood sugars. And a diet that's sustainable and healthy and good, but also something that's low in carbs. So those are a few things you just redouble your efforts to. You might consider adding a weight loss medication into the mix to see if that can budge the needle a little bit, although all of these collectively usually don't have the big enough impact on their own. What does work really well is usually a revisional procedure to revise the gastric bypass surgery, and that has gotten much better in recent years. For decades, we in bariatric surgery have grappled with how to revise a gastric bypass, and often we didn't have a good answer. Mostly the efforts have been mediocre. Some of them have revised to make the stomach pouch smaller. Some have put things and devices around, such as a band. These have all had a few successes, but not enough hits, and a lot of sort of mediocre results. In recent years, though, we've gotten much better, and we've gotten some really good data from some larger studies showing excellent outcomes with revising the bypass part, the Y part of the gastric bypass, where the real epicenter of the hormonal change takes place that regulates body weight and that regulates blood sugar. So bringing it up to 2020 standards or beyond takes into account some of the lessons we've learned from the science of duodenal switch and the science of metabolic hormones. By making the pancreaticoduodenal limb longer, this makes it more distal, so-called distalization or limb lengthening procedures. And normally this can be done with the laparoscopy, not always, but usually. And usually that can be a short little 45-minute procedure that's very safe and yet very effective at jump-starting those hormones and creating a new weight loss. So upwards of 80% of people, and often 90% of people, will see a significant result in jump-starting the hormonal weight loss regulation, and they will see that reversal of diabetes and that improved weight loss after that procedure. The amount of weight lost after that is usually not as great as the initial gastric bypass surgery, on average for most people, but yet it is still very significant, and it is still very important for improving health and longevity. It has all kinds of positive side effects, for our heart, our lungs, our blood pressure, our kidneys, etc. So there are good cards to play is the bottom line. So what are those 3 things that you can do today if you feel like your gastric bypass has failed? The first one is take a little stock of where you are today personally, and that means knowing what your current height, weight, and BMI are, the body mass index, and knowing what your health insurance plan will cover if you chose to have revisional bariatric surgery. The second, by far the most important thing, is probably to do some research about, in your area, in your region, where is an experienced bariatric surgeon and center that have done a lot of revisional bariatric surgery, because this is a bit of a niche and you need a few people with some experience and perhaps some gray hairs. And that is a person you need to seek out and research, and then go and get an appointment and an opinion, because that's going to be perhaps the most valuable thing. You also want someone who's got an experience with a range of procedures and who kind of knows the landscape and can do all of the different procedures, and so they'll tailor their advice to you personally. I think that's really invaluable. And the third thing I would say is to do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Research this area a little bit. You'll find lots of interesting papers, academic papers, and then articles about it. If you want to hear a little bit more in depth what I have written about it that's meant for the kind of average person, for people in my family, at www.revisionbariatric.com, there's a free special report that you can get, and it'll be emailed to you, and it's a fairly easy read, but it describes these procedures in detail, a little bit about the data and where it's come over the years, and that might help you make you feel more informed. So those are 3 things that you can do today. Lastly, I would say don't lose hope. Sometimes people feel really discouraged if they've regained a bunch of weight or had their diabetes come back after gastric bypass surgery, and know that you haven't failed. If anyone, it's us. But there's good cards to play to help solve that and to get you moving forward to a healthier weight and reversal of diabetes and a longer, healthier life. So I wish you great luck with that journey, and I wish you great health.